Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Sink and Swim podcast. I am absolutely floored to introduce Jesse Moore. Welcome, Jesse.
Well, hello.
Oh,
Okay,
floored. That is
floored.
a warm and welcoming reception.
Well, every time I talk to you, it's just very fun in general. So I was like, I feel like the world needs to see this kind of conversation and see what's possible for them.
Let's tell every person that I have and will coach what you just said.
Yes. He didn't pay me to say that, just so you guys know. Okay, Jesse is currently a swim and life coach, formerly a collegiate Division I swim coach at multiple amazing institutions. I was actually looking at your bio last night and I was like, oh man, that resume is incredible. And I mean, you have such an incredible background. I can't wait to dig into it. But other things about you that people may or may not know: you're an entrepreneur, an intuitive leader, a globetrotter currently coming to us from China, and a constant growth seeker, which I love about you because so am I. And that's just the best thing ever. So welcome. So glad to
Hello.
have you.
Thank you so much.
Okay. So this whole former national championship winning coach story is part of the reason that I wanted to invite you on here, because some people may know, some people may not know that you literally reached the pinnacle of the swimming sport for the most part. I mean, in college sport at least. And it's so incredible. And then you were like, I'm going to leave it all and rebuild life on my terms, which that is like the story of Sink and Swim. You chose to sink it when you were at the top, which takes so much courage and self-awareness. And so, I knew there had to be a story here. So I was like, I need to hear about this.
Oh,
Some
man.
more.
Yeah, I mean, I was coaching at UC Berkeley, and
Yeah.
in March of 2023, that's when we won the national championship. I left, my last day at Berkeley was May 31st of 2023. I didn't announce publicly until the first weekend of May, but I knew for a while. So what people didn't know, and most people still don't know, I actually made the decision to leave college athletics in January of 2023.
Oh my God.
Yeah, my dream was to be the head coach at Duke, and I was on the path for that to happen. And Dan,
Yeah.
for those who are listening, Dan passed away in December of 2022. He was the head coach at Duke and a mentor of mine as a coach. I coached under him for 4 years. And I was at his memorial, and I was at the swim meet. The team had a competition that weekend, and I sat there and I was just thinking about okay, well, this is supposed to be the next step, right? Like I'm going to go take over Duke. And I'm in there and I was like, I had been thinking for a few years about leaving college swimming. And the person I talked to about that was actually Dan. And he always said, he always called everybody hey, brother, hey, sister. And he was like, brother, you could do anything. You could literally do anything. He was the first person that really told me I could do anything. And I kind of had inklings of belief that I could, but I was sitting in that pool in January of 23 and I was like, I don't want this anymore. I came away that weekend, knowing clearly that I wanted to leave college athletics. And when we were in Minneapolis, which is where we won the national championship in March, I actually signed my lease in between prelims and finals and moved. And, after I left Berkeley, I moved to Minneapolis. I already had an apartment before I ever even finished the NCAA championship.
Yeah.
So
You knew.
I was ready to be
really
done.
Knew. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay. So here's what I love about this is in the theme of sink and swim, you sank your college swim coaching career at a swim meet at a place that you truly thought was the place for you. Again, so much self-awareness, so much. I mean, that is a hard decision in and of itself. I mean, it might have not felt hard to you. It might have felt very intuitively driven, right? I'm sensing it probably did. Yeah.
A combination, right? There's my dream. My dream is right here,
Right.
there were those internal battles, but it came natural. I just knew it, and I tend to follow my gut.
I guess when I say hard, I mean the mainstream world that's looking from the outside in would think, oh my gosh, like you have everything you want. You literally, it's right here in front of you. Why would you leave? So tell us, like, what was the impetus or what was the inspiration to move on to the next thing, whatever that was?
I am a self-diagnosed workaholic, and I didn't have a healthy relationship with coaching college athletics.
Yeah.
Um, I was obsessed, and like I sacrificed my own health and wellness for success in this industry, and I sacrificed personal relationships, family relationships. Like I skipped my own brother's wedding to stay at junior nationals so that
Wow.
another team couldn't get a leg up on recruiting over me, you
Hmm.
know? And so like that's the level, like very close friends, I skipped their weddings. Like I was not present in my own life because I was so focused on achievement.
Hmm.
And I didn't have a healthier relationship, and I was craving more out of my life. Like I wanted like a personal life and I didn't have one, and I was just thinking about things, and it really struck me when Dan had passed away because I just thought, okay, let's say hypothetically, and then I ended up winning it, but like hypothetically, let's say I win a national championship and I do all these things, right? Like I've helped put people on Olympic teams and I've coached, people all over the world. And if I'm 65 and I retire, if there's no one there with me, does it matter? Like, and so I had that kind of existential crisis of like, if I don't have people I care about witnessing my life and I'm not witnessing their life, is what's any of this matter anyway?
My gosh,
I
chills,
know.
first of all. I'm picturing, like, first of all, like the poetic side of this came to you, this realization came to you when you were at Dan's memorial service and at the place you thought was your next step where you might have become like just poured your workaholic self into Duke swimming, which I would have supported as a Duke swimming alum, but also as someone who now very much coaches people to not do that. I would
Yeah.
have been like, they're like, dude, you're going to have to tone it down a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's something so poetic. It's almost like there's this little gift that Dan gave you, like beyond the grave, like whispered it in your ear and in the like Thai Shop Aquatic Center when you're sitting there watching the swim meet. I also love like this parallel of like you were skipping out on personal like weddings and things like that. And then you're picturing nobody coming to your whatever retirement party, right? Because all of your friends are swimming friends, right? And then they're all like so workaholic that they're going to skip out on you. What a like full circle, like almost seeing the future full circle moment to rewrite your story.
If I'm being honest, spoiler alert if people haven't watched the season finale of The White Lotus, but I felt like Carrie Coon in that final scene where she was like, we've grown apart, but like I'm happy to have a seat at the table, and like her life didn't
Yeah.
pan out. She put it all into work, and then she put it into love, and then she put it into being a mother, and none of that worked and fulfilled her. Like it was this extreme example that like actually like struck my heart a little bit the other day, and I might have shed some tears while watching this episode.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I felt like her in that moment. Like I don't want to be 65 and not be sitting at anybody's table. I want people to sit at my table too.
It always comes down to a people, right? Like that's, you hear it, it's so cliche, but it's not what you do, it's who you do it with or like who those people are that matters. And I love that that came to fruition for you, like as a really important life realization. I feel like so many people could benefit from hearing that over and over and over again. And it may not land for them today, but maybe they'll remember it and it'll land down the road.
And the universe is constantly testing me with this
I
because,
know. Oh, yeah.
I left and then I kept getting offers, and it was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. Oh, that's tempting. I should think about that. And it's like, no, stay out of the trap. This like it's like your drug. Like stay away. Get your hand out of the peanut M&Ms,
Get your head
And
out of the
I
peanut.
I feel like I'm having another test right now because I just had an offer 2 days ago, a 7-figure offer. I've never had a 7-figure offer before. I have a 7-figure offer on the table, and I'm like, oh my God. And I actually think I'm going to turn it down.
Jesse, we were just talking like a month ago. You were like, you built $1 million coaching business. And then I was like, and I walked away from it. Shut it down. Because I was getting it's I love the peanut butter, peanut M&Ms metaphor. It was so joy driven for me, but it was becoming my drug.
Mm.
That wasn't the only reason. There were so many reasons, but that was one reason. And I was like 5 steps ahead of it becoming the drug, and I started to see it. And like that was the slippery slope I was about to go down. And I was like, oh no, we have been there and done that and rewritten this story already. We're not going back. But you're so right about the universe sending you all sorts of opportunities to put in some reps in the gym, like strengthen that muscle. And
Yeah.
so, what did you decide to do instead? What
With
was next?
the decision the last
So
couple
you signed
days.
the lease in Minneapolis, and then what happened?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Signed a
sorry,
lease
we're
in
going back to that.
Minneapolis. And all those years that I was coaching, I had racked up some beautiful Sky Miles and some terrific hotel rewards points, and I'm a lifetime platinum Marriott member
Nice.
proudly. And so Marriott, Delta, and I and their airline partners and whatnot all got very friendly for a while. And I was living in Minneapolis. I was getting healthy, both physically and mentally. I was meditating almost every day. I lost 60 pounds because, again, when you become obsessive on something and you stop taking care of yourself, that was one of the ways that, like, that expressed in my well being. And then I went on vacation off and on for 9 months. And just traveled and had a blast and hung out with my friends and my family. And, like I flew my mom out to Thailand as part of one of my trips. And we had a cool experience in Thailand together, especially like at the ethical sanctuary for the elephants that we went to in
Yeah.
Koh Samui. And I just like I needed to like rest for a bit. I had been so adrenalized in my career for so long that I had a lot of trouble like sitting still. And I love working out. And so I did that quite a bit. And I started swimming again and was on a master's team, and I was doing Orange Theory and I was lifting and all this stuff. And so I just like poured everything into me. And so
Mm.
I very intentionally, for 9 months to a year, didn't make decisions that like had anything to do with anyone else but me, and got healthy, got my mind frame and mindset back to where I wanted it to be. And then I started my business right after I left coaching, but I had it on pause. I just had everything kind of set up. And then I started getting all of that together. And then I started setting up my business and promoting that May 1st of 2024. So I'm not even a full year in.
Yeah. Okay, I remember like watching all of this, through Instagram. I saw the Thailand. Didn't you go to Italy at some point, or was that like late last
Italy was
year?
in September. My family is
Okay.
Italian. I speak
Yeah.
Italian, and I went to Italy and visited my family there. And some of my family from the US went as well.
So cool.
Yeah.
And and then I remember you announcing your business. So tell us about what you pivoted into in your business. I think it's so cool, but I'll let
Yeah,
you tell the
so
story.
I have a life coach certification. That was something I started doing while I was coaching. I thought that it's just another way to like up my ability to be a coach for my athletes,
Mm-hmm.
because it's just so much like coaching college athletics is so much more than just coaching swimming. And I
100%.
really believe that, like, and that was part of my method, like I wanted to coach people and help them become the best version of themselves, which leads to them becoming great swimmers.
Yeah.
And, in combination with my education and some interests I had in terms of that, I started a coaching business where, and it's still interesting because I have a little bit of a battle with that, with my coaching business. But, I really wanted to start with like high performance corporate coaching. And I still do want to go into the
Yeah.
corporate world more, but that was pretty hard to break into. And I do have some clients and whatnot, and that's happening, but that's taking a little bit more effort. But during that whole year, people started reaching out to me like families on Instagram, hey, could you help us with the recruiting process? And I thought, God, I think about all those recruiting services out there and how they price gouge all these families. So it's only affordable for those that want to take on debt or have the capacity to write a large check. And they're really ineffective. Like coaches just delete all that stuff. And so I wanted to create something that was affordable for everybody. And so like the least expensive package that I offer is $99, right? Like, and that's a one-time
Mm.
purchase. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And the most expensive package I offer for the recruiting business is, 2,500. So
Mm-hmm.
it's $1,500 less than what all these businesses are doing. And so what I'm doing is helping students and their families navigate the college recruiting process, specifically
Mm.
with swimming. And so I have an online digital membership with it, which has never been done in this industry, and offer, my services from the perspective of somebody who was coaching on the other side. So
In recruiting, you did a
yeah,
lot
and
of recruiting.
recruiting and
Yeah.
doing all of that. So I'm teaching families and the recruits how to navigate this process, but also like how to then fire me. Like you don't need me to hold your hand. I'm going to teach you and then you're going to walk the path. And so that's like what I've done and that's been well received. I mean, just in 2025 alone, like the first 3 months, I've signed 24 clients now.
Mm-hmm.
And my clients last year that I had signed had all committed to amazing schools. Huge shout out to Duke because my first client, and like I feel like Dan was with me on this too.
Yeah,
Like
100%.
I think I
Yeah,
messaged you that actually.
you
Like I
did.
felt like
Yeah.
Dan was part of that. And so yeah, my first client committed to Duke, and I had clients commit to Yale, Brown, UC Davis, Pepperdine, great universities like Virginia Tech. It's
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah.
it went really well, and so it's continuing to go. And yeah, getting clients and like it's nice to be able to work where I feel like I'm helping people, which is really important to me, but also to be able to have freedom of choice on how I spend my time.
So cool because you're still impacting college swimmers and it's like the ripple effect is still happening.
Yeah.
Even, I don't want to say more so, it's just less direct,
Yeah.
but it's like you get to make sure they're making the right decision for them, which is only going to benefit them, but it's also going to benefit the team and the team culture and all those types of things. And you have such a wealth of experience being on the other end of it. You also were a collegiate athlete, at William and Mary, right? So you've been on all sides of it, and there's just something to be said for that experience and that true like know-how in terms of trust and like ethics, like you said, these nothing against all the other services, but it's different when you truly have this like deeply vested interest in somebody thriving, not just them, but the teams and everybody else. And I love that you have such an experience on so many teams too, that like, and you're such a fan of them, it's like you move on to another team, but I can still tell you're like, yay, go team that I used to coach for, you know? And it's like, who doesn't want that type of person in their corner who just wants to see everybody win?
And I think so many people, I think, are so insecure about like they feel like there isn't space for everybody to win. It's like if they can win or I can win. And I just really believe that we can win. And I think that that's part of like I think of coaching as it's a partnership. It's a relationship between the coach and the client or the coach and the swimmer. And it's a partnership that we're working together. Like we're problem solving together, And like as a college swimming coach, like what's the problem? Well, the problem is how do we get from where you are now to where you want to be? And I mean that both as like a swimmer in terms of those times and performances, but also as a person that helps like what behaviors have to change to get you from A to B, And I love growth. Like I can tell you, this is my favorite coaching memory, by the way. And it's with a Duke swimmer named Matthew Johnson. And he was somebody that was unbelievable as a young swimmer before he was recruited. Like at 15, he had an Olympic trials qualifying time
Mm-hmm.
as like a freshman in high school. And he was a distance swimmer and had a new club coach take over and his performance, really changed negatively because the club coach, it's not like the club coach's fault, but the style of training changed to being very sprint oriented and different than what his body needed. He didn't get very like highly recruited. And I went after him at Duke. I saw that kid swim. I just had this connection with him. I wanted to coach nobody else more than I wanted to coach him. And I just knew we could make something happen together. And I remember his freshman year, it was a slow burn and he just kept getting better and better every meet. And then we were at the ACC championship at Georgia Tech, and he finished his 500 on the first day, and he looks at the clock, and some people just like slam the water and get excited and stuff. He looked at the clock, he broke the school record. I'm like on the side, arms are pounding up and down, I'm jumping. That's what I do. I'm a jumper when that stuff happens, and I'm like yelling, and I just see him get like this adrenaline rush, and he like slams the pad a couple times, and then just like this embodiment of joy. And I started like bawling. Like I was so happy for him. And he came over and we hugged, and it was like such a cool experience. It's like just seeing people celebrate themselves. Like I love that. Like I'm addicted to that. Like that is cool,
Oh my gosh. I feel tears welling up in my eyes about that, just picturing it, because you're right. It's like, if you can put aside me versus you, or my team is better, like, and just be in it with someone, like that is one, a huge show of empathy. Like it just shows how empathetic you are. And two, it's just like that beautiful growth mindset, abundance mentality of there's enough for everyone. I was thinking about that when I was watching the Final Four at Duke this past weekend that Duke was in. And in the last minute and a half, it was going in Duke's favor. It was going to work out, and then it did not work out.
I know.
And it was stunning. I was at the Washington Duke end with so many other alums, and we were all watching it on the big screen on the golf course. And everyone went from like, yeah, we've got this in the bag, to like, what just happened? And I learned several years ago when I was watching, it was another sporting event. It was football, college football. My husband's a Georgia Bulldog, and we were watching, I think it was a national championship game with Georgia versus Alabama. And I remember thinking, I had a friend at the time who was a teenager who was battling cancer, and she was terminal. So it was like she had a couple more months left to live. Swimmer, actually. And I remember thinking, you know what? I'm so happy that Alabama won and beat Georgia, even though I'm a Georgia fan, because she gets to be happy. And let me think about all of these other players who wanted that so bad on the team that I'm supposedly rooting against, right? And they get to be happy. And how happy can I be for them? Like that just feels so good. And in that moment, flash forward back to the Final Four this weekend, I remember thinking, well, I'm so happy for all these Houston players who want this so bad. The coach who's never made it, to or won a national championship. Like, how cool is this for them?
Yeah.
Who cares? I mean, I can be upset and I can be happy for them. Two things can be true. So just want to commend you on your emotional intelligence there. And I know that's a big part of your strengths and like your development. You love growth. So tell me about how, like, as a kid, as a teen, as a young swimmer, all of those types of things, how that kind of was shaped, or how it developed to where it is now.
That's going to be a deep conversation. I hope you're ready for that one.
That's what we do here. That's the sinking part. We're going to sink in.
I mean, I've taken the assessments, so I'm very emotionally intelligent according to the assessments, but I am. I believe that I'm emotionally intelligent, and I'm perceptive on how other people are feeling, and I've gotten really good at regulating my own emotion. Sometimes I choose not to regulate my own emotion because that has a purpose too,
Yep. Absolutely.
But I guess that's another form of emotional intelligence as well, right?
You got it.
But I think that I had an unbelievably young epiphany of like my own sexuality. So I identify as a gay man. I can tell you I knew that I was, but I didn't know the word for it when I was like 4 years old, and I can tell you the first time I experienced shame. I can tell you the first time that I can tell you the first time I discovered the word gay. And it was, I was like, what, 5 years old at the time. And, that is pretty young to watch like the Real World Road Rules shows on MTV way back then, right? Like, I get that as a parent, but, for Christmas that year, I got a TV in my bedroom. And so I'd stay up late sometimes and I'd watch The Real World and whatnot because it was so, juicy. You have to watch all that. And that's when I discovered what the word gay was. Like there was a
Uh,
character in San Francisco, Pedro, and there was a whole theme to that season. That's like how I was able to label that for myself. And that's how I was able to learn, oh, this is something I'm not supposed to talk about from like a safety perspective, right? I think that put me sort of like on the defensive a little bit as a young kid. And then, you know, whether it was like quote feminine tendencies or whatever, I used to get made fun of as a kid. Like, what's so funny because people would call me like, fag or whatever, like, and I was a really good athlete and I was a really good student. So I'd like kick your butt at everything. That was always humorous to me. But yeah, yeah. But at some points in my life as a young kid, people were pretty nasty to me, and like I think I had a choice to make, and that was, dim my light. And I don't know if I truly actively realized that I chose to like turn my light on brighter. But I just had this like internal desire to outdo or outwork or outachieve everybody because, in later years I realized that's a coping mechanism for feeling less than, right? And
yeah.
so it's like I was, battling to be number one in the class when I was graduating high school, and I was a state champion, and like all of these things in athletics. And, I mean, it got to a point where I was achieving so many things that it was like, you can't do like whatever you want to say, bring it, like,
You can't get
because
me. Yeah.
I'm better than
Mm-hmm.
you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that mentality changed as I got more mature and emotionally intelligent, and in college I got really, really, really self-aware. But that was my journey of like self-awareness and like, you know what I mean? As a young kid, I had some pivotal moments that were really impactful at a very young age of understanding who I was and, how I was.
There's like I mean, yeah, there are coping mechanisms that were developed from the bullying and teasing and outcasting and all the things. But I feel like there's also this power, like this quiet power that came from that, like a quiet confidence, especially the like, come at me, bro. Like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna toast you on this. So who's making fun of who at this point? Like, but it's like you didn't have to resort to their game. You just quietly led and quietly showed that you're confident and you knew this about yourself at 4, you know? Sure, develop some coping mechanisms, but also like didn't hide it, It's like,
hmm
here we are. That's so cool. And, down with the people who bullied you, but that's another conversation for another day.
Well, and you know what? I look at that too. Think about that. Like, here's a mindset frame. That was a different time.
Was a different
Young
time.
people are mean because they're terrified, like the reality that everybody is scared, like everyone is scared, and so I hold no hard feelings. I hold like I get it, I get it. Everybody, you're good, we're good.
It's like you're not making it okay, but at the same time, there's
Yeah,
such, again, compassion and like empathy on, you know what, like you do you. I see why you're doing that. It really has nothing to do with me.
yeah, it
And
has
we
nothing to do
we
with me.
we all have fear. And I love that, like the allness there, like we're all one and we all actually feel this. This is just the way you're choosing to act out with it. It's your only
Yeah,
lever to pull.
yeah,
And I'm the subject of that, and that sucks. But at the same
yeah,
time, here we are. Yeah,
totally.
it's so human. I love when we can like I feel that way about a lot of things that I don't necessarily agree with out in the world. And when you can kind of see it for a scared little kid in a grown up's body or a scared little kid in a kid's body, it really humanizes it and makes you see that, well, yeah, if I were in that situation and I were scared, I might pull that lever too. I might do the same thing, like if that was the way I saw the world,
Yeah,
that was how I was conditioned or brought up or whatever. And you're right, that was a very different time. And thankfully now things are changing.
totally.
And I love how it's almost like you've taken that hurt and turned it into fuel and turned it into power and compassion.
And had it one naturally like healthy brain chemistry, right? That's a
Yeah.
gift. And my mindset was fortunately, I think, naturally more predisposed to be a growth mindset. I'm
Yeah.
luckier than so many other people
Yeah.
that experience any type of bullying or whatever as a young kid, because that, like, a lot of people retreat and or hurt themselves even, right? Like, God forbid that. But, like, I'm grateful for the health that I was lucky to be born into.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I mean, not everyone has the neurological capacity, the psychological capacity, the emotional capacity, the spiritual capacity, and the external support, I would say, right? To
Hmm.
be able to turn that hurt into fuel, to be able to develop the drive, to have the growth drive that you do. That's innate, and also you have to develop it. So there is a lot of, I love that you're acknowledging the privilege of that. That's important to do. And also, like, you can still be grateful for it and be like, yeah, that's awesome. It's just this awesome thing about me. Yeah. I'm curious how you mentioned this a little bit, like you want to shape the person and be there for the person, how that really influences your coaching style with people.
I mean, I've always said this. I'm a better coach for somebody in year 2 than year 1. And I know that's kind of like a, well, duh statement, but it's true. Like, when you get to know somebody and you build a relationship with them, I think that's what's important to recognize. Like, in my style, it's really important for me to get to know somebody,
Yeah.
because if I can connect with them, like, I just feel equipped to help them. And there's certainly people that I have not connected with over the course of my career, and I'm much less effective at coaching them and understanding what they need. And it's not that I'm a bad coach for them, but I'm an average coach for them. Whereas if
Yeah.
I get you and you get me and we, like, have this in sync capacity to work together, it's really special what we can achieve. Like, I really believe that. I think that's something that is a little harder in the kind of coaching I'm doing now. Like, I'm not spending 20 plus hours a week with somebody like I used to. And so getting to know people becomes a little bit more challenging. And
Yeah.
so, that's probably that's a relationship capacity that I am missing, and a challenge for my coaching now.
Yeah.
But certainly, as I think it's part of why I'm so direct in my communication. Like, I ask very direct questions. I don't mean that I don't sugarcoat things, like, in a mean way. I'm just like,
The
here's the
truth. Just
information
the
that I
truth.
need. Like,
Yeah.
let's just get this out, because time is of the essence. Like, some of my clients I work with for a total of 5 hours. Some of my clients I work with for a total of 24 hours when you span that out over different periods.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah. Well, I think it's actually, again, quite emotionally intelligent to simply just tell the truth. Like,
yeah.
there is that part where you sense that this might hurt, and you can sugarcoat it or kind of, put lipstick on a pig a little bit with it. But I think it's quite emotionally intelligent to know that you're not responsible for their emotions. And when you're coaching someone and in a mentoring relationship, obviously you're not going to just come out and be like abusive, right? But at the same
Yeah.
time, the truth is just the truth
Yeah.
at the end of the day. And sometimes people need to hear the hard truth and feel the hard things so that they can learn their own emotional regulation. And you get to be that person who's holding the space for that with them. Yeah. Brilliant. Love it.
Yep.
Okay. So you're in China.
Yep.
All right. So you went from 9-month vacation and you're building your business, and we're just getting the story together. Now you're in China. How'd that come
Out of
about?
China.
That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So, the conversation with China first happened while I was still at Cal. And I, s- you know, I considered it for a moment, but it was a no. Then it came back, and a different conversation. And I was in a place of, yeah, like, I'll do this. It was going to be a 2-month training camp kind of thing. I can go for 2 months and do that and still run my business remotely, which is what I do anyway. Like, I can make this happen. And this would be a fun, interesting experience working abroad like that. And then the doping scandal happened, like, with, like, that coming out in the world. And
Yeah.
I pulled out of going to China because I didn't that training camp would have been during the Olympics, so it was like coaching the next group, if that makes
Okay.
sense, the
Yeah.
non-Olympic group. And I didn't want to be an American coach in China and, be associated with like a doping scandal. So I had pulled out. And then afterward, when that news cycle was over, and it ended up not being much of a news cycle,
Yeah, right.
after like a few days, it didn't come back up really during the Olympics, fortunately. But I had agreed to come. And so I came in November. It was supposed to be, for a training camp that went until January. And I had a break to come home in between. So I was like, 4 week chunk, break at home, 3 week chunk. And in my third week of that first segment I was here in November, the director of the training center asked me to stay long term. So I thought about it. We negotiated some things and I stayed. And so I'm here until the Chinese national games are in November. And that's the equivalent of like the Olympic Games, but just for China.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really big deal for all of their sports. And so I'm here coaching until November 20th. And then, yeah, so I'm here in China and I'm living like right now I'm in my room in the Olympic Training Center
Nice.
here in Wuhan. And, like my facility that I work at is a 5 minute walk away. The dining hall is across the street. I don't cook anymore. I just walk in and eat yummy food. So
The dream. Okay, when you were first talking about earlier in our conversation about like walking away from coaching D1 collegiate swimming, and what I pictured was you returning almost to your college student era. Like, okay, I'm going to go take a 9-month sabbatical and travel, like study abroad, but not really study, like, because you're like, I
yeah.
just need to turn my brain off. It's like, explore yourself, explore the world. That's exactly what you do in college. That's what it's there for. And then you're like going to China, living basically in like a dorm, someone's cooking for you in the dining hall, exploring, like still doing this thing that you're very skilled at and enjoy and all that, while also exploring this like life coaching thing, and building that. And it feels very like your second collegiate student era, only now you're a grown up getting paid for it.
I'm on a campus, right?
Right.
Even better though, I don't have to clean my own dorm room, right? So
Nice part.
I've got cleaners, so that's
There's
a
a
good thing.
payoff.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I mean, I go into the dining hall for all my meals and it's interesting because I'm working with it's a different population. So these are professional like paid swimmers. Like they have a
Mm-hmm.
salary from the government,
Mm-hmm.
like that's their job. And some of them are pretty young. Like I coach people that are 13 years old that are paid by the government. I
Mm-hmm.
coach people that are 30 years old that are paid by the government and every age in between. And it's a totally different system and totally different ideas on athletics. And here's the hardest, but also the most interesting challenge: coaching through a translator and the
My gosh.
nuance of language, because the way that I coach, there's some very direct, like, hey, just rotate your arm a little bit this way, blah, 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 anchor the catch. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
direct
right.
communication that's pretty easy. But I also coach with abstract ideas, like I
Right.
was just teaching about the water snake and the scales on the water snake and how you have to use your body. Like the water snake doesn't have arms and legs. Like swimming has to come from your body. That's your energy center.
Right.
And you have to like move through the water, and each scale, think of it as a light, and it has to light up when you're actually activating it, and it gets brighter the more you activate. And there's this like range of light movement over our body. You know, Translate that for me.
My gosh. That's such a
So
cultural, like, yeah. I mean, it's like what is it, an idiom? Idiom?
you're
What's it
out of my
called?
wheelhouse. I don't know.
Where in linguistics, where it's like so specific, like metaphorical in one
Yeah.
language, but it doesn't directly translate.
Yeah.
I don't know
And
the word for that. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, even like, in the United States, we say, like, hey, I'll see you at the swim meet this weekend. Like, we're going to a competition, right? I was saying swim meet, and that translates to like a pool party. So people are like, pool party, And so it's like I have to say the competition, And it's funny to get the translation back, So we would say an event, like the 100 butterfly, and it translates from them. They call it the project. So that's a project, right? Yeah, and so there's just these nuances of language that are really interesting and that you have to catch on to be able to effectively communicate. That's been a really because It's kind of like, you know how they say you can learn something, but you really learn it when you can teach it.
Yes.
It's like a whole different challenge to teach in this way through a translator, having to like really focus on the language and how you shape the language to be able to be translated. It's like
Yeah.
forcing you to be able to just teach a master class all the time.
My
And it's
gosh.
really enjoy it. It's really challenging
What a way to keep you on your toes.
all
I
the time.
mean, I just think of like the like you said, the nuance of language, but higher than language, just general human communication.
Hmm.
And what is it you're actually trying to say? I am such like a storytelling file, or like linguistics. Language to me is so interesting. Like, how can we use words to really convey what's going on in here? What I'm trying to get you to see, feel, touch, taste, all that. And when you add in a language barrier and differences in culture and how we use words and what the words mean and all that, it's like you have to really be thinking in 4D almost.
Yeah.
Wait, what is the actual essence of what I'm trying to get across here? And how can I choose another word for the translator to maybe see if it lands? Interesting.
It is really fun.
So cool. And you love travel. You literally are like a globetrotter. I love that this is like part of your what we're calling your second college student era. And you have like a group, right? You call them your tribe. You're from college.
I went to William and Mary,
A
and
tribe,
the mascot is the tribe.
right?
And so I call them my tribe. Like
I
I
love
have
it.
this core group of friends. Like we have a group chat, and one of them was a on my team was a swimmer, but another was a basketball player, another was a tennis player. Or two others were a tennis player, and so we're a group of five, and we have a group chat that's pretty active, and we all live in a different place, so it's hard to like get to see each other, but
Yeah,
it's
I know that.
incredible when we do.
Yeah. Do y'all get to travel together ever?
Uh, Sometimes, as a whole group, never. We never have. But
That's
like,
hard.
and we even talk. We plan it, but it's we're at that stage of the five of us. Two of us are married with kids, and so it changes the relationship dynamics a bit. My friend Tiara is an official for basketball, and she does ACC and Big Ten
Yeah.
officiating and WNBA and whatnot. And she's on the road a lot, but then I get to see her a lot because we're in the same areas all the time.
Yeah.
Like, so, when she's working, like when I was living in Chicago or when I was living in Durham or Minneapolis, like she would take games there and then we would get to stay together and hang out and spend that time
Cool.
together. So
Yeah.
it's like fun to get to see people that way or randomly. My friend Megan, I randomly ran into when I was recruiting. I was at the San Francisco airport, and this was when I was at coaching at Duke actually, and I get to see her randomly at the airport. I turn around and she's at baggage claim standing 5 feet from me, and she had just come back from Wimbledon
Oh
and
my
was
gosh.
going on a trip to Napa. And so we ended up getting to hang out that week, which was really fun. And then, there's times that we plan together, like I was on campus with some of them not long ago.
So cool. I mean, you're totally right about this stage of life where, depending on what your job is or what your family dynamic is, it absolutely changes the friendship dynamic. So that's one difference in being in your college student era is all your friends aren't just like down the hall.
Yep.
Truly, if anyone's in college and listening to this or going into college and listening to this, I can't emphasize enough that that part of your life is so unique. Like where you're like you're everywhere with each other, like your dorms, your dining hall, sports, some of them, it's just so immersed in friendship. And I love that you guys stay in touch. That's just really, really cool. Um, okay, you mentioned that your family is from, speaking of traveling, you mentioned that your family is from Italy. And
Mm-hmm.
I know that there's a story about your grandmother, your Nana,
My Nana.
and your relationship with her, and how, like, speaking of just meaningful relationships, as we're talking about, like, tell us about that and what your relationship with her and your loss of her, like, taught you.
Yeah, so family's from Italy. My Nana's her family's from Pisiano in Tuscany. And we went to Pisiano to visit the family that still lives there.
Nice.
And I speak Italian, not well, but decently.
Mm-hmm.
And growing up, my nana was the person that was like the frequent babysitter of my brother and I, right? Like she was the grandparent that was usually the one that was babysitting us. And she's very different than me. She worked really, really hard, but she worked hard in a way that was all about family. She was like
Mm-hmm.
family focused, like where I sacrificed the relationships in my family with my career earlier. She would like, she's the opposite of that. She just would bring the family together. And she and I were really close. She taught me so many things that you don't even realize. Like I remember
Yeah.
getting like, blowing a bubble with bubble gum with like the big square chunks of bubble gum
Huh?
and getting it in my hair because I blew a bubble this big. And then she shows me how to take it out. Or just like she took me to bingo as a kid and taught me to play bingo and taught me how to play poker. And she's like a gambling fiend. Like she would go to Atlantic City every Thursday on a bus and gamble.
This
And
is an
where,
Italian grandmother. Like, sounds classic in so many ways.
and
I
her
love
food
it.
was amazing. And
Yeah.
where we really grew close was I switched legal guardianship from my parents to her so that I could move and train with a different coach and then just be
Mm-hmm.
kind of covered from like a health insurance and
Mm-hmm.
legality standpoint and all of that stuff. And so talk about a really supportive family of my dreams and endeavors. And so I ended up moving in with her and went to high school living with her in a different town. And it's like we were a team. My grandfather, my nono, had passed away like much younger in my life. And I would wake up at 4 something in the morning to go to practice, and I'd be out the door before she ever woke up. She was a night owl. She was like midnight to 8 a.m. She slept.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd be gone before she ever woke up. And then when I would come home after school and after practice, there would be a fresh made Italian meal every day. And it was so good. And especially after swim practice, when you're like ready to just eat
Starving.
everything.
Yes.
And I would rush to get my homework done and I would go back downstairs and we would play poker or rummy or whatever for like the next hour every night. And we would just talk. And our relationship grew so much. And I probably said things in front of her and to her and whatnot about life and whatnot that she was like, Mamma Mia, like she was
Mm-hmm.
not expecting to hear some of that stuff. But very open human being here. And she just like I would call her twice a week when I was in college. Like
Oh.
she was my person. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember, like my brother, for example, started dating somebody and like I was just thinking how like everybody was kind of like paired off or had their person. And my nana and I were like the alone single people. So I sent her, like a big Valentine's Day gift one year and just a note that said like, this person has this, like my mom has my dad, my brother has his, girlfriend, whoever. And I said, I just want you to know that you're my person.
Oh,
And God, my teammates used to come over for pizza and dinner that she would make,
of course
like
they did. I would be
yeah,
there.
just like the best. And I think this is my favorite, one of my favorite things about her. It really truly didn't matter if I was number one in my class or a state champion. It's not that she didn't care. She cared. She was so proud. But it was just like you knew there was just this automatic eternal love that was just unconditional. Like congratulations on winning your state championship. Do you want to have pasta? Like, what I mean? It was like,
Right.
okay, I said congrats, so we're done with that. Now, like, let's hang out and talk and spend time together. And I was coaching at Northwestern, and it was January of 2018. She hadn't been doing very well for a couple weeks, and she was in the hospital, and she was, I wanted to FaceTime her, so I FaceTime my dad. He was in there, and um, I said like she didn't have much, she couldn't say much, but she like I could see her reach out to try and grab the phone and to like hug me almost. And
Oh.
I just said like, Nana, I love you. I just want you to know I love you. And she was like, I love you so much. And I didn't know this, but that was the only time she spoke that day. And yeah, and like my dad said, she wasn't able to get words out otherwise. Abby Steckety was my boss, my head coach at Northwestern. I was her associate head. And Abby listened to that FaceTime because we shared an office. And
Mm-hmm.
I hung up and she said, Jesse, I know how you always talk about her. Like, I think you should go home, you know? And I was like, no, I can't. We have the senior meet this weekend and, you know, all of that again. Right. And she goes, I'm going to say this one more time. You make your choice. But if something happened to her, would you be glad you went home or would you want to be here? And I was like, oh my God.
Mic drop.
Yeah. And so I said, you're right. I didn't even, my dad told me not to come home. Everything's fine. But I had this gut feeling. And I grabbed my backpack. I got in an Uber right to O'Hare to the airport.
Mm-hmm.
And I bought a flight while I was in the Uber going to the airport.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know what happened. I just start sobbing in like I knew she was going to die, you know, like I knew it in my soul. And I'm like sobbing going through security. The security officers were like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "I'm going home for a not good reason," you know, like, and they were like, "Got it," you know. I had no stuff with me. And here's the crazy thing. My aunt, my Nana's daughter, she's in Utah, and I didn't know she was in the process of flying back. So we landed at the airport at the same time she saw my plane land. She knew. I texted her that I was flying home, and she texted me that she was already en route.
Mm-hmm.
And we ended up landing in this small airport in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. It's two terminals, and we ended up landing like side by side and walking out right into each other at the exact same time.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was like orchestrated by the higher powers. And we just hug. And it was like, how crazy is that? And my dad and my mom were in the car outside picking us up. And so we went right outside. They were taking us right to the airport. And we were waiting for an update. So we sit down in the car together. We get the update. And they're like, well, we're putting her, like, they're starting morphine, but we're waiting till you guys get there.
Mm-hmm.
And she wasn't really like lucid and conscious, couldn't open her eyes, couldn't talk. But I held her hand and I said, Nana, I love you. And I felt her like just squeeze it a little bit, you know, and I got to be there for her death. And I'm like, you know, I was crying, but like not in like a sobbing, ugly way. It was just like, I was just thinking over that whole week that I was at home. That's when I was so emotionally not burnt, but like impacted by that. And I was trying to understand like other people in my life had died. Why was this so, like, I felt like pain. It was like, it hurt in my chest. And if I thought about her after that for years, I would cry, you know? But I think I realized that was love. Like I was like, that grief meant how much I loved her. And how cool is that, you know, that I like had that with somebody, because I don't think I ever knew what love really felt like.
Yeah.
You know, like I didn't know.
Well, I hope everyone who's listening has tissues. Thank you so much for sharing that amazing story of like so many little synchronicities that just helped you get there. I'm so glad you were there. And also that you got, as much as I hate to say, I'm so glad you felt the pain of grief and look at what it actually gave you, the gift of realizing, oh, this is actually what love is. I love the quote, grief is love with nowhere to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I've experienced that deep, deep heartache as well. And it's like, sometimes you don't know until you know.
Yeah.
Or like, you don't know what you have until it's gone. Very cliche, but it's very like, it's almost like that's a necessary piece of the whole chapter of love to really know, you know. Oh, that was real. Beautiful.
And the intensities of love. Because if even questions, I'm going to be honest with you. Sometimes I'm like, you know, you say I love you because you have to say I love you to certain people. It's the right thing to do. But it's like, you know, deep down, I love you. But I don't love you. Like I loved my Nana, you know?
Yeah.
And there's like this intensity difference,
Layers.
the scale of love.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is going to sound terrible. And I don't mean it that way. My other side of the family, my grandfather, I loved my grandfather. The intensity isn't the same. You know what I mean? Like my relationship with her was deeper and different. Just like I'm sure like a parent to a kid or something would be so much more intense, you know? Yeah, that's the only time in my life I've ever felt the intensity of it. Like, I don't think I've ever felt a more intense emotion in my whole life other than in that situation.
Yeah. Yeah. And what a gift. And just bringing it back to even as a kid who is very emotionally intelligent and someone who now regulates or doesn't, right? Regulate your emotions. Like, what a time to not be like, oh, we're going to need to calm that down and like assuage it and make it better. It's like, no, that's like a full body feeling, being in it process, because it's just part of like, it's part of the alchemy of love. It's like,
Yeah.
if you don't give it its space, and like if you weren't there, it might have been a little different, right? Probably would have still hurt a lot.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
like it's just full circle. Got to happen.
Yeah.
Like it got to work its way through all the way.
I also
Wow.
learned too professionally. I came back to Northwestern after that. I missed the senior meet, which is a big deal, right? Like
Yeah,
that's
it's a big
like
deal.
people's last home
I
competition,
cry
and
at that meet
it's like a
every time.
closure
Yeah.
of them, right? But like the world didn't end.
Yeah.
Like the meet still happened. The swimmers weren't upset. They totally understood. I mean, they were texting me when they found out what happened, and like, I felt like I'm missing out, and I'm not. But it's like it's okay. You can miss your thing. Like it's okay. And it's like
Yeah.
that's another hard lesson that I had to learn too, is like by being so quote dedicated or boneheaded about like not being present for things, I'm teaching the people that I'm mentoring as their coach to do the same thing. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? Like, and so
Yeah.
doesn't that give them me leaving to be there for something important like that? Like that gives them permission without having
Yes.
to give permission.
The unspoken permission slips, the like
Yeah.
true role modeling of what like true self honor looks like,
Hmm.
self and other honor, family honor, like truly honoring your values. For some people, it's not going to be being there for their grandmother. For other people, it will be, but it's more the feeling behind it and not the actual thing that you're modeling. Back to like even you saying, I want those people at my retirement party at 65. You're modeling what that actually looks like in action versus just saying that's what you want.
Mm.
You're
You
putting your
just
money
connected
where your
that for
mouth
me.
is.
I didn't, I never connected that either.
Well, you did it with leaving the
Yeah.
D1 coaching job. It's like you're putting your money where your mouth is. You're actually practicing what you say you value. That's full integrity, right? Versus, well, yeah, I value family and I value myself and self care and listening to my heart. But I always find it so interesting. And we've all done this, especially as super driven, dedicated people to our careers or whatever it is. You say it and then it's not actually being done in action. And modeling that for young minds, young swimmers, I mean, that makes me so happy to see because
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't work with young swimmers anymore, but that's like, that was my baby in the early part of my career too, is to try and be that person for them. So, wow, beautiful, amazing. Okay, well, slight pivot. I mean, I know that you've got way more that you can offer for people in modeling and being a great mentor for young swimmers, which you'll continue to do in your business and in your coaching work. Tell us what's next. Like what's coming next? What's coming down the pike? Like what are your goals for next year? What are you envisioning? What's happening?
Yeah. I actually really, unlike a lot of people, I actually really enjoy speaking in public.
Same.
And I know there aren't many people are like, no, I'll pass on that.
Yeah. Hard pass.
And I want to try to help. I don't know what that 100% looks like yet, right? But I want to try and help people on a bigger scale. Like, how can I help
Mm.
more people? I've thought about like, what can I offer? And so I'm still developing whatnot, but topics to speak about that I think I could like really make a difference and really give experience and evidence to, and basically trying to design kind of like a TED talk and being able to talk and present about that. And I think about things like I have education in neuroscience and whatnot that really I find interesting and fascinating, and
Yeah.
it works into my organizational behavior background. And then I've worked with teams that are really high performing in so many capacities, and I've thought about this idea of being pressure proof.
Ooh.
And you can take from neuroscience and organizational behavior and the experience of coaching all these high level athletes when you're thinking about coaching them as people, right? And not just as a product, an athlete, right? And all of that together, how can you help yourself be pressure proof? Like, not avoidant of pressure. Pressure exists, right? Like, how can you put yourself almost like the analogy of like a pressure cooker, like how can you teach yourself to like open the valve to let some of the steam out so that you can like perform your function the best you can.
Ooh.
So that's what I'm working on right now.
I would come to that TED Talk.
I'll let you know.
That would be amazing. Yeah. Keep us posted. I feel like, honestly, anything we talked about today would make a great story to tell, too. Just, you've got so many great stories, which is why I wanted to have you here, because I knew there were good stories in there. And so much to share. And stories are the way we connect. And that's, I mean, there's so many places. I can just even think of the swimmer, the story of the 500 freestyle. Like, he could have buckled under pressure, and you helped him find a way not to, which is beautiful.
He's the best. He's the best kid ever.
Awesome. Amazing. Well, we have a lightning round, which is very exciting. These are surprise questions that everybody gets, and they pretty much you'll probably find a way to make connections, but they don't have anything to do with anything we've talked about yet, which is what I love about them. Okay. Number 1, if you could be any animal other than a human, what would it be and why?
I think I would pick a lion. I like if you ever took a DISC assessment, they used to do this association of animals, and a lion was a high D. And I'm a high D, a very high D. I have a high D, I should say. And my Nana, her maiden name was Leone, which is lion in Italian. I like lions are like the leaders of the king of the jungle, the leader of the jungle, right? And like that whole metaphor. I like the idea, the symbolism of, power and strength. And so that's why.
Amazing. I'm going to start calling you Leon. Okay. If you could get a drink with 2 people, dead or alive, who are they? And what would you say to or ask?
Oh my gosh, rapid fire, but I have to think for a second.
Can be anyone.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I don't want to keep like waiting. So I'm going to say, oh my gosh, this is really hard. I would probably choose somebody really abstract just because I like to how different people think, and I want to like learn something or understand what their thought processes are. So I might actually say Albert Einstein.
Good one.
Right? Then again, I want to learn and I want to have a good time while learning. And I think somebody like Michelle Obama or a Viola Davis even, would be a phenomenal dinner companion.
Michelle Obama would be one of my 2, I think.
Yeah.
She was just on a podcast interview with Kylie Kelsey that I listened to, and I was
I saw the clip.
I've read her books, and like, she's starting a podcast. I'm like, I'm all over that. You're just so intriguing to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she's so normal. She's just like on earth, which I love.
But she got more normal post White House.
Did. Yeah. Well, that's kind of understandable.
I get it, but I wish people could just like, I have no interest in like the societal norm of like, oh, this is how a politician should be. Like, oh, we should be very presidential, Like, I love Hillary Clinton, like her post career behavior and like how much more free she is, and I just wish people would just be who they are. Like, that's why I think
into that.
Yeah.
Totally. Well, I think Michelle, from what I hear, I don't know her, from what she says, it seems like she really valued that normalcy even before they were in the White House. Like, once Barack was elected, she was like it was very much for her children, making sure
that makes sense.
They were getting a driver's license and like learning how to drive, even though they're being driven by, as she said, men in armored cars with guns everywhere. Like, they bought a car for the girls and they took them out and taught them how to drive. And I feel like that was such a cool part of her story, and still is, that she doesn't seem to want to, like, she'll show up at big events and all that kind of stuff. Like, she leans into that, but she doesn't make that her identity.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I'll be there at that dinner with her. So you just let me know when that's happening.
And there will be cheesecake.
Perfect. Done. Okay. Speaking of cheese, does pineapple belong on pizza?
No, it doesn't.
Said like
Strong
a true
opinion.
Italian. Yep.
I
I
love pineapple, but I don't like it. One, it actually does taste gross on pizza to me. And it's not even like because of the Italian background, right? Like I totally understand it's offensive to Italians, but it changes the taste of the pizza. Get off my pizza.
It does get a little soggy. Like the pineapple juice, I feel like does change. Great. It's such a polarizing question, which is why it's here.
I know.
Being so sure of your no. All right, next question. I'm a fly on the wall on an average Friday night for you. What do I see you doing?
Well, I'm not that exciting. I
Either.
go to bed really early, including on Friday and Saturday nights, because I go to the earliest class offered at Orange Theory usually.
Nice.
So Friday night, you're gonna see me probably making dinner around 5:30 on a Netflix show or something like that. And then I'll fall asleep on the couch and I'll wake up at, 4:15 in the morning.
I know, you're talking to me at what, I guess it's 5:30 there now, a.m.?
5:30 here now. I woke up at 3:30, but that's what I usually do is wake up here at 3:30.
Wow, impressive. I go to bed early, but I sleep in. I sleep a lot.
Hey.
Is there Orange Theory in China, or is that like a when you're in the US thing?
There's not, unfortunately. So I typically would go 5 days a week. Nice. So I live on the training center, so I can work out anytime, and there's an outdoor pool. Like it's like in the 80s and sunny every day. So I can just go out there and.
Yes. Do you, as a swimmer, do you have a standard for pools? Just side note that you swim in. This is not a rapid fire.
Totally.
Question.
Yeah, totally.
I feel like outdoor pool is at the top. Outdoor 50-meter pool to me is at the top.
I prefer short course for myself, but the number one thing for me is the water temperature. I need cold water. I don't like warm water. I get so hot.
Gross. Bathtub. No. It just feels like, I don't know. It also feels dirty to me. Warm pool water. Yeah. Okay, back to rapid fire. Last one. What is a hidden pleasure or obsession of yours that people might find surprising, weird, quirky, or questionable?
A hidden pleasure that could be weird or quirky. My gosh. I guess I'm really into skincare.
Nice.
I actually had a paid partnership with my favorite skincare line, and BioBear is wonderful. Their ingredients are amazing. I have psoriasis, so ingredients and their impact on my skin are really important to me, and love that company. But yeah, skincare. I go to Seoul and I load up on stuff, and I love to, I was at a competition with the team a few weeks ago, and the night before the competition started, we had a team meeting. And then I said, in the US, when I've coached, we've always had traditions of doing a skincare thing, or people get pedicures or whatever, And so I had brought all this different stuff for their face, and then a snail face mask, the goopy stuff that you apply to your face. And it's hey, moisturize. Because at the end of a swim meet, everyone's faces are
gosh, yeah.
So I was let's do skincare. And they all thought that was hilarious.
I love it. What a brilliant tradition. Love it.
It's a good time.
My swim teams never did that, but probably should have, because it would have been really fun and also healthy for us.
But you know what? Mine didn't either when I was swimming, because you and I swam before they really put money into college sports. You know what I mean?
About that.
Because then, when I was coaching at Duke, that first year, when we went to NCAAs, we got them massages all the time. We took them for team pedicures, all that stuff, and that was paid for by our budget.
Yeah. I feel like I need some reconciliation on that.
Some
alumni
back pay.
Reconciliation, some back pay. Oh gosh, we could get into a whole conversation about back pay, but that'll be another podcast episode for another day. All right, well, love that. Love these answers. Gonna have pizza without pineapple, do some skincare on a Friday night, have it at 5:30, talking to
and
Michelle
be asleep
Obama
by a sensible 8:30.
And be asleep. Well, I mean, I'm game for that. Yes. That'll be amazing. That'll be the next podcast episode. Be sitting next to each other doing all that. Well, Jesse, thank you for being here. Tell us how people can get in touch with you. Where can we find you? What's coming up? What do we need to know?
Yeah, all my social media handles are the same at Coach Jesse Moore. I'm a big Instagram user, so feel free to hit me up on there. My website is also coachjessemoore.com. You can reach out to me through there as well.
Yay! I'll put all this in the show notes for on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube, so people can
Thank you.
click and go find you. Well, thanks for being here. We'll have to find out what type of globe-trotting adventures you get on next and keep everyone updated.
It's coming. Thank you all so much, and thanks for having me.
Of course.